This is the last video before the coffee break today, and we're going to be looking at the bend smoother. And for this I'm going to use a very popular cycling route, the climb of Sacalobra. And at the beginning here there's a couple of examples of where I might want to use the bend smoother. They're not hard to find. Let me just use the settings to allow us to focus in on the shape of the road. And you can see here a fairly crude bend. If I drop a marker and place the pointers either side of the bend, then the bend smoother tab will suggest a way of smoothing that bend. I have to concede that is not a very good suggestion. I'm going to go out of sequence here and just quickly show you the insert control. The insert control allows us to add additional track points between our markers. So I can come down to a fairly fine spacing of, let's say, 5 meters. And that has put, as you can see, other track points in between the ones we had previously. And if I now drop the marker, I have the ability to move the marker and the current point inwards or outwards from that bend, which will give me some alternatives as to the path that I could take around that bend. I can also change the fineness of the bend so that it becomes smoother by adding points more closely together. And the idea here is to try and find a suitable combination of points that will look at that. Give me a nice smooth curve that is similar in shape to the original bend. I'll take that one, thank you very much. And it's worth pointing out while we're at this angle that placing that bend, it's a perfectly circular arc. It also smooths the gradient from the orange to the purple cones, so that gradient is uniform within that region. Also in this tab we have another button here that you can see, smooth current point. Just very quickly, that is applicable if you don't want to actually make a complete arc for the bend, but you just want to focus on one particular point. It will replace the single track point there with 5 points arranged in an arc, and sometimes that in itself is sufficient to get you a nice smooth curve. There is a mathematical difference between the two approaches. Whereas the classic bend smoother is a planar arc that then has a gradient applied to it, this operation here is actually creating an arc that is three-dimensional, that can be oriented in space, so that it just happens that it works also quite well for any kind of gradient problems that you encounter. But there are limits. It will not work particularly well on very tight bends. That would still be probably unacceptable in GPX Magic, in which case you might there want to revert to using the classic bend smoother, because that will give you an opportunity to bring the radius of the bend in somewhat